Okay, welcome everyone. Today's October 10th. There's a couple items on the agenda. Damien, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So the topic I wanted to bring is about the PR and an issue related to it that was open years ago now, to add a metric for ephemeral storage. We've looked at a bunch of different places to put that metrics in. Cube state metric was one candidate at some point. But due to their nature, like ephemeral storage, we cannot get information about their like usage or size at the API level. So like I think the conclusion after years was that if we ever want to add this metric somewhere, we need to have it in KK directly. So that's what the current PR is adding. And the problem with that metric, it's that it's theoretically unbounded in a sense that like pods can have as many ephemeral storage as they want.
Do we have a precedent for specifying pod as a label?
I think we do in the kubelet, no?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously like all the C advisor stuff.
No, not the C advisor stuff, because the C advisor stuff does weird stuff, right? I mean, my understanding is we do have pod labels for resource metrics, which David worked on, right? But we're not using traditional Prometheus metrics. We're using.
You just mean custom collectors?
Custom collectors, yeah.
Yeah, I assume we would do that for this as well, right, Damien?
They're not doing that here. I think, right? Are they?
It doesn't change anything if we were to do that, is it? Like the difference with the.
They are making custom.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
They must be.
Okay. Because they have to get rid of pods when they disappear, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So this should be fine, right?
I think like the only problem that I had at the beginning, and I think that's why I wanted it to like have a clear approval from everyone from the SIG, is that it's theoretically unbounded. Like although there is a pod label, it's bounded to the number of ephemeral storage. I checked with one of the storage lead, and to them that should never outgrow the number of pod. Like in a cluster, there should always be less ephemeral storage than the number of pod. And so since we already have per pod metrics in kubelets, theoretically that wouldn't be like the highest cardinality metric we've ever added.
Yep. Can you
even if like yep.
Are these per empty dir volume, or are these per pod as a sum of ephemeral storage?
Per empty dir volume.
Can't you have like 100 empty dirs on a pod if you want?
Yeah, you could. And that's the problem, I guess, because like there is nothing that bounds the number of ephemeral storage. Like if you go, like for example, pods, like the number of pod is theoretically unbounded, but it's limited due to scalability reasons. But for ephemeral storage, like theoretically it could be unlimited. But in practice, I don't think that will be the case. Like it should be limited similarly to pods.
And empty dirs have their own size limit, right? Because I see discussion of that as well.
Yeah, also mentions of 2 gigs being the default.
Okay.
I think the usefulness of the metric, like I don't have a specific use myself, but I know that a lot of people have been requesting it because it's the only metric in storage, I think, or at least for storage size that they don't have today. So even though it could have a high cardinality, maybe same for the churn since it's tied to pods, the usefulness seems to be there.
Okay, yeah, I think it makes sense. For some reason, I thought we already had these metrics, but if we don't, then yeah, I'm on board with adding them.
I think the request and I think some PRs to implement it have been done over the years, but we never reached maybe approval for those because we tried to look at different alternatives such as cube state metric and other areas. But yeah, my personal opinion also is to approve it. And worst case scenario, if it breaks anyone at any point, we always have this solution of disabling metric at runtime. Oh, and also there was the suggestion, I think Anne made it to create a new endpoint for this particular metric since it's unbounded, similar to what you did, for example, for the resource metrics.
Wait, why would we make a new endpoint?
No, we are not. Or this PR
I don't think we should. Yeah, I don't think we should.
And generally, in the issue, at least people were pretty much against it because they want this metric by default.
Yeah, I don't want it on a separate. It's a pain in the ass to have stuff on separate endpoints. SLIs is a different story, but it should be exceptional case to have metrics on a separate endpoint.
For discoverability, it's more difficult. For SLIs for resource metrics, it makes a lot of sense because you want different scrape intervals.
Yeah. If you want different scrape intervals, it makes more sense.
Yeah. So are we all good to merge this one?
Yeah, but I don't know why people keep pinging me on this. This is kubelet metrics. They should be pinging David.
Yeah, feel free to ping me.
Oh, it's because I thought you wanted to because I know that you have strong opinion about unbounded metrics, so I wanted you to have a look.
But in the context of the kubelet, I have less context because they do weird stuff in the kubelet.
If you want to have a look at it,
yeah,
maybe.
David is probably the best person to look at it.
For this topic.
Okay, I had one thing I wanted to just raise. So in the recent version of Prometheus Client Golang, they made a breaking behavioral change to the gather and compare test util. Previously, if you passed in a list of metric names and you provided a metric name that didn't exist in the text you were trying to compare with, it would allow that. But they've now made that an error. So if you have an empty string as your expected metrics and then list a metric.
Why would they do that?
Because a lot of people were writing tests that they thought were checking for a metric. But it turns out because the expectation was empty, it wasn't actually doing any checking.
I mean, they're just writing bad tests. I'm not sure we should make a breaking change for that. That seems broken.
I mean, we could consider asking
recognize that it's
yeah, I mean, people should not make breaking changes. Yeah, people should not make breaking changes to stuff. Because this is supposed to be a stable API. Why do people not honor APIs?
I think they just were negligent because that's a test API.
Yeah, but then you're
or they made a mistake.
They treated it as a bug fix, I think.
Yeah, but it changes the API. And it breaks a bunch of tests.
Right, and the biggest issue is that it now isn't possible to assert that a metric is absent.
Yeah,
because we have a lot of tests that had expected an empty string, and we're looking for a particular metric name to assert that it wasn't there.
Can you link this CL, because I want to comment on it. I think they should revert this.
Okay, what I've proposed in this PR that updates the dependency.
Yeah.
Oops, if I can find it, the linked PR from here.
Oh, I see.
Is to add a gather and assert absent function in KK. And there's discussion of doing something similar upstream. I can also try and bring you into the Slack thread for anyone who's interested. There's a Slack thread in the client Go Slack.
CNCF Slack, right?
Yeah, CNCF Slack.
Okay.
Let me find it.
We could see this issue before. I wonder if it didn't break us, like maybe in metric server or something like that, or maybe cube state metric.
So let me.
I think I saw it somewhere.
Yeah. Bartek commented on it. He was like, this broke hundreds, dozens, if not hundreds of. This is.
Okay. So there's all the lists. But also let me know what you think of the workaround. So this does add a new function to component-based metrics test util.
Which code did you add this? The new function?
This really makes sense.
Oh, I see. Gather and asset absent.
Yes. Because that was the main piece of functionality that we needed from the previous API that we don't have anymore.
Yeah, this is terrible. If they wanted to make this change, they should have introduced a new function and deprecated the old ones. This is not the way to do it.
And they should have maintained the behavior of checking for empty.
Yeah, well,
results.
that's why I'm saying they should deprecate the old one and introduce a new one with the new functionality that they want. This is not the way to do it. You are breaking people's tests. That is absurd. That is absurd.
Do we have a reason to update the library soon? Or can we delay that to when the fix is applied to the library?
We could delay.
Yeah, let's delay it. I want them to revert it.
Okay, I think if we think we can ask them to revert it, that's maybe one option.
I mean, I already asked them to revert it.
It took me a day to get all of this working, so a little sad, but I guess good to raise it.
I mean, they shouldn't be doing this. This is like literally not the right thing for them to be doing. I mean, if we duct tape around it, sure, we're just excusing their behavior. But Prometheus is like consumed by like thousands of people. Like this is just like not acceptable to just like break APIs that people are using.
It's pretty cheap. Like reverting and having a new release is cheap. And like fixing their bug or like the bug between quotes in the next release would be like something simple to do as well for them.
But it's actually another breaking change for anyone that's adopted it. As part of it as well.
Well, they should not have done it in the first place.
Yes,
they should not have done it in the first place.
Isn't this like the way to do, shouldn't even, I think not even at the scale of Prometheus, but in general, shouldn't you have a deprecation cycle in place?
Yes, they are doing something ridiculous. Yes, they are doing something ridiculous. They are taking a used API and they are just mutating it out from underneath you.
I think usually they go through deprecation cycle. It might have been just a miss on their side.
This was a huge miss, yes.
Yeah. But as long as they correct it, that's fine.
Okay. Han or Damien, can you guys follow up in Slack and we'll see if we can get that resolved, and then we'll decide what to do with the dependency update. I'm partially updating this, Han, because I just did the update in Google 3, and that was just as much fun. So,
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, they just shouldn't do it. I mean, like, but the thing is, when you run into something like that, your instinct shouldn't be to fix it. It should be to like scream at Prometheus. Because what if they do this again for something more important? It's like, no, they need to learn their lesson and not do this. This Prometheus is used by thousands of people.
Yep.
I don't know. I take APIs very seriously, but
okay. Any other topics for today?
Rich, how's your keps coming along? Are they pretty much good, or?
Yeah, the flagsy one was merged. Status Z
Nice.
was blocked on just one comment. I think I've resolved it. I'm waiting for the original author of the comment to respond.
Nice. Awesome.
So that there was some suggestion which on the status Z cap. Like, is the plan to, like, if there are any changes between what was expected with the flag Z and the status Z, is
that we need to be
goal to kind of converge at some point, like during implementation? Okay.
Yes. I will probably raise out another PR for making those same changes in flag Z as well.
Yeah, that's fine. Like some simple comments that are just like some minor feature change, or
it's related to auth. It kind of surprised me. I just learned yesterday.
But there is another one?
Yeah, related to auth. So we were initially thinking of relying on system monitoring to protect access.
It doesn't
work for the kubelet endpoints. Even metrics, SLIs, all other endpoints, they're not accessible via system monitoring group. So we need to make changes to the system monitoring cluster role to allow for these endpoints so that they become accessible.
You can do it a post-start hook. You can do it at a post-start hook in API server. I think we set up a bunch of permissions that way.
Or we already have a list of rules. We can just plug in these new endpoints in those rules. That's already works as a post-start hook.
Okay.
We can migrate whatever was existing for kubelet to your new implementation.
No, why would it break?
No, not breaking, but migrating to the new framework that you would have in component base. Or are you going to let them have whatever they had before?
I am not sure. For now, I've only proposed adding the status Z endpoint to the list of rules that's allowed in the cluster role for system monitoring. If we need to port over the metrics and the other endpoints, we need a separate discussion for it, I guess.
You know, instrumentation owns like half of component base at this point. We have like metrics, tracing, logs, now Z pages. No, like a third. It's interesting.
About the metrics it's the metrics in client Go. Do you remember the discussion, Han, with the person that wasn't super happy with the sync ones?
I don't think we should change. Like, look, I don't want to break upstream to satisfy their whatever weird thing that they're doing.
And I looked into it. Like, we are using 3 different libraries, and for each of these, we have a different way to set the metrics. Like one allows via an interface, so you cannot check whether one particular metric is being set or not by the caller of the library. Another one is like the struct, so you can check, but yeah, everything is so different, and they are trying to find a generic way. It's gonna be, I don't think we can do anything about that.
One thing we can do is wrap the registry. I think it's already wrapped.
Yep.
And on registry initialization, we can give each registry an ID. And then we don't need to sync that once. We can basically register metrics using registry IDs. That means it will only register once if it's the same registry. Or something like that.
The problem that I have with that kind of approach is that it allows, like, it opens the door to like register the same metric multiple times.
Yeah, that's kind of what they want, though.
Kind of, but not really.
They
like
want to
when I looked
register
at the issue,
the same metric to multiple providers. That's registering the same metric multiple times.
Yeah, but when I looked at the issue and the person that was asking, like, on their side, like, what they want to do is essentially, so container, what is it now? Controller runtime is implementing some of the interfaces, but not for all the metrics, for like some libraries. And the user wanted to extend that and add the other interface that are not implemented for their use case. So they don't have like a direct use case of defining the same interface twice, but they would want to extend it. But because of the sync once, it's not possible. Like they would have to add a sync once per metric instead of like per like registry or whatever they are.
Is it possible to just somewhere in the stack ignore the duplicate registration error?
Yeah, you can use a register instead of a must register.
Yeah.
Or like we could do that in component base.
I think it's not as much as like DO is not as much of a problem because like some of the metric, like both metrics, since they are implemented at different level by different libraries, like one could be registered to a specific registry while the other is registered to another registry. So we wouldn't have a collision there. But the problem is that we would still emit the same, like two different metrics because they could have different names, but they would essentially have the same data inside.
I don't know.
Okay,
whatever we do, I just don't think we should break whatever implementation we have today.
Oh yeah, I think so as well.
Like, as long as we don't do that, and the thing is, not giving them what they want also satisfies that prerequisite. So I don't even know, is it worth doing the thing that they want? Are they doing something that even makes sense?
I think it makes sense, but at the same time, I don't think it's something we can change.
Okay, then I would close the issue and tell them
yeah.
Can't fix.
I'm just waiting for the reply and once the follow up, because I don't want them to continue bringing us and not understanding what's happening. And like once they understand our stance, then I think I will close it.
Sounds good.
Can you link it from the agenda?
Yeah.
So I can take a look.
It right now.
Are these meant to be one of the other approaches that we could take? Is like you don't get a duplicate registration error if you have a label that's unique to your thing. So if we want like work queue metrics for it to be possible to register like that 10 times or whatever, we can accept like the name of the work queue or something. And as long as that's unique, people can register it as many times as they want. you can do like with const labels or something, and that'll pass the duplicate registration check.
Yeah, but we would have to remove the sync once. And I think like one like fear from the client Go maintainers, I don't remember who commented on the initial PR. I think it was Daniel, but I think one fear was that there would be data races.
If we remove the sync once, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we did have those data races, and that's why we introduced the sync once. So I don't think we can remove it.
Okay.
Like it's quite a huge one, and yeah, there's a lot of things we would have to check if we ever want to change anything in this area.
I think the problem is like we have, depending on your distribution, multiple API servers bundled in one API server. And so you kind of need the sync once. Because it gets re-imported in every API server.
Yeah, you could have like multiple REST clients, for example, and they would still all use the same metric underneath. But the fact that like users cannot really extend the interfaces that exist for the metric is pretty bad, in a sense that a library could implement partially an interface, and then a user that would import this library won't be able to extend whatever was done. So it kind of defeats the purpose of the initial metrics API that was created, at least for the client Go.
All right. Well, we're past time. We should probably call it.
Yep. All right. Thanks everyone for joining. See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.